Welcome back to Whyloric, the podcast for curious minds. I'm your host, and every episode we explore something worth thinking about. Career, life, culture, history, or just the little whys we never stop asking. Today, we are diving into a topic everyone wants to master, but rarely talks about honestly: money. Specifically, how to manage freelance income, make smart bets on crypto, and turn side hustles into real profit.
You know, there's this really fascinating social phenomenon that happens at almost every dinner party.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with it.
Right, you can be sitting around a table with friends and you can bring up the most controversial, boundary-pushing topics imaginable.
Yeah, politics, religion, whatever.
Exactly. You can debate all of that. You can even bring up that deeply bizarre thing your cousin did at a wedding last year, and people will generally lean in.
They love the drama.
They do. They will engage. But, the exact moment you ask someone how they actually manage their personal money.
Oh, yeah. The air just completely leaves the room.
Literally. People suddenly find their napkins incredibly interesting.
It's the ultimate modern taboo.
It really is. And you've probably sat there yourself feeling that sudden tension, realizing that everyone would rather discuss literally anything else than their own financial anxieties.
Or, heaven forbid, their bank balances.
Right. But today, we're ripping the Band-Aid off.
Love it. Let's get into it.
We are diving straight into the mechanics of modern money management. And specifically, for those of you out there who have completely stepped off the traditional path of, the guaranteed biweekly paycheck.
Which is a huge chunk of the workforce now. It's the great conversational silencer, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And the irony is that, while we refuse to talk about it at these dinner parties, the underlying structure of how we earn a living has radically transformed.
Yeah.
Over the last decade alone.
Yeah, it's not the same world anymore.
Not at all. We are dealing with a workforce where unpredictable income, side hustles, and speculative investments are just the new normal.
Right.
Yet the advice we use to manage it is stuck in the 1950s.
Which is exactly why we are dissecting a very specific blueprint today.
Yes, our source material.
Exactly. We are pulling this from a single source for this deep dive. It's a script from the show Whyloric. It's titled Money Talk, and it features this conversation between the host, Alex, and a personal finance expert named Sarah.
And it's a fascinating piece of material to break down.
It really is. Because, if you just glance at the script, it reads like a casual, breezy chat. It's maybe, 6 to 8 minutes of banter?
Yeah, something like that. It's very fast-paced.
Right. But our mission today is to completely deconstruct it for you. We are going to decode the profound psychological survival guide that's hidden underneath that casual tone.
Because it really is a survival guide.
It is. It perfectly articulates why the old school standard financial advice completely fails the modern independent worker.
It just doesn't apply anymore.
Exactly. So we need to figure out how you can actually build a secure life when your income flat out refuses to behave predictably.
Right, because, the central conflict here is that the human brain operates best under conditions of predictability.
Oh, for sure. We love knowing what's coming.
We need it, biologically. But the modern economy increasingly demands that we live in the state of constant financial flux. And the Whyloric script attacks this immediately by isolating really the most glaring example of this new economy.
The freelance lifestyle.
Exactly. The freelance lifestyle.
So let's actually start right there. Let's talk about the freelance illusion.
Oh, the illusion is so powerful.
Right. You've probably looked at your own Instagram feed while sitting at a desk and felt that exact jealousy.
Everyone has.
The expectation sold to us is just pure glamour. You're supposedly working from a laptop on a beach in Bali.
Sipping a coconut.
Exactly. You are your own boss. Your commute consists of walking from your bed to your living room.
Maybe putting on some nice sweatpants.
Right. Doing high-level creative work in your pajamas.
Oh.
It is pitched as this ultimate escape from the golden handcuffs of corporate life.
And that expectation is fundamentally, it's a marketing campaign for autonomy.
Ooh, a marketing campaign. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because it sells the idea that if you just remove the manager and you remove the cubicle, you automatically achieve freedom.
Right, which sounds great on paper.
But the script immediately shatters that.
Yeah.
It forces us to look at the math and, more importantly, the psychology of the reality.
Yeah.
And the reality isn't a beach. The reality is an income stream that resembles a heart monitor.
A heart monitor. I mean, that visual is just so visceral.
It is, right, because think about the physiological implications of a heart monitor.
Okay.
It is characterized by violent, unpredictable spikes, followed immediately by sheer, terrifying drops.
Yeah.
It never plateaus safely. There is no steady line.
Right.
So when you map your financial livelihood, the actual money you use to shelter and feed yourself onto that kind of violent visual, you begin to understand the constant hum of anxiety that defines the independent worker.
That makes so much sense. Because you have months where you are flush with cash, absolutely thriving.
Oh yeah, you feel invincible.
Right. And then you have months where the line just flatlines.
You're just staring at the screen.
Exactly. You are sitting at your laptop, frantically refreshing your email, hoping a client finally pays a past due invoice.
Agonizing.
Wait, let's pause on that. Let's unpack this for a second.
Sure.
Because if the reality is a constant state of frantic email refreshing and financial whiplash, why is society so drawn to it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. I mean, why is everyone so desperate to do it if it's so stressful? It sounds like we haven't actually gained freedom at all.
No, we really haven't.
It sounds more like we've traded a stable, boring train ride for a roller coaster where you have to frantically build the tracks in front of you while the cart is already in motion.
That is an incredibly accurate analogy. Building the tracks while you ride.
Yeah.
And the reason we make the trade is because we systematically underestimate the cognitive load of unpredictability.
We don't realize how heavy it is until we're carrying it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We think we are just changing how we get paid, like changing direct deposit to wire transfers.
Okay, just a logistics thing.
But we are actually changing how our brains process survival.
Wow.
Let's look at the refreshing the inbox scenario you just mentioned.
Yeah, let's look at that.
In a traditional job, you do the work, and the corporation's payroll department handles the collection. The money just magically appears.
You never even think about
You
it.
never think about it. But in the freelance world, the script points out a devastating reality. It says clients often disappear, quote, like it's a magic trick.
Poof.
Gone.
Completely gone.
And along with them, the rent money.
Exactly. The vulnerability of collection is entirely on your shoulders.
It's terrifying.
And if we dive into the neurology of this, the human brain is hardwired to seek patterns.
Right. Pattern recognition.
Because recognizing patterns is how our ancestors knew when to plant crops or when predators were migrating.
Oh, interesting. So it's deep-rooted.
Very deep. Predictability equals safety in the human nervous system.
Okay, I see where this is going.
So when your income is a heart monitor, when a client who owes you, say, $4,000 can just vanish in a puff of smoke, your brain never gets the signal that it is safe to enter a state of long-term planning.
Because you're stuck in survival mode.
You're constantly scanning the horizon for threats instead of looking ahead to the future.
You are physiologically in a state of fight or flight, literally.
Wow.
The prefrontal cortex, which handles your long-term rational planning like saving for a house 5 years from now, it gets hijacked.
Hijacked by what?
By the amygdala, which is basically screaming about the unpaid invoice from 5 weeks ago.
Right, because the immediate threat is so loud.
Exactly. You literally cannot plan for the future when your present is a daily math equation of survival.
So it's like disguised as being your own boss, you actually become a prisoner to the unpredictable whims of a dozen different clients who hold the purse strings.
It's a complete illusion of control.
Yeah. Instead of one manager you can at least, predict and manage expectations with, you have 10 managers whose internal accounting departments you have absolutely zero control over.
And this cognitive overload, this constant low-level panic, is the exact reason why taking standard budgeting advice and applying it to a freelance life is a recipe for psychological collapse.
It just doesn't work.
It cannot work. If your income is a volatile heart monitor, you cannot use financial rules designed for a flat, steady, predictable corporate line.
The math simply will not compute.
It completely breaks down.
All right, so if the old math is broken, how do we actually fix this?
Well, we'd have to redefine the baseline.
Right, because this brings us to what the Whyloric script presents as the foundational pivot.
The starting point for surviving this.
Exactly. If we accept the heart monitor reality, how do you logically plan your life around it without having a nervous breakdown every 30 days?
You need a new rule.
And the script introduces something called the golden rule for variable income. And frankly, I find it incredibly abrasive.
Oh, it is abrasive by design.
It's harsh.
It is, because it requires a complete rewiring of how you perceive your own success.
Well, let me lay it out for you, and then I want to push back on it, because I think a lot of people listening will have the exact same visceral reaction I did.
Go for it.
So the golden rule presented in the script is this. You must budget your entire life based on your absolutely lowest earning month, not your best one.
Right.
And the script gives a concrete example. Let's say you look at your last year of freelance work and your absolute worst, most miserable month brought in just $800.
A terrible month.
A terrible month. The rule dictates that $800 is now your permanent baseline.
Mm.
Your rent, your groceries, your very existence must somehow map to that $800.
Yep.
And any single dollar you make above that is reclassified as a bonus, never as your normal income.
It's a radical categorization of money.
And a miserable one. I mean, I have to fight you on this from a purely human standpoint.
I completely understand why you want to.
Because let's say I've been eating ramen, stressing out, scraping by on this $800 month.
Right, you're suffering.
Yeah. And then suddenly I land a massive 5-figure contract. I make $10,000 in a single month.
A huge win.
Are you seriously telling me that in my greatest moment of professional triumph, I am not allowed to reward myself?
That's exactly what the rule says.
I have to continue living like I'm hovering near the poverty line. That feels entirely punishing.
It feels that way, yes.
I mean, it's like assuming your house only consists of a concrete foundation and treating the beautiful upper floors you just built as if they are a mirage that could vanish at any second. Why even bother building the house?
Okay, I hear you, but here's the harsh truth. Because in the freelance economy, those upper floors are a mirage.
You really think so?
I do. And they absolutely can vanish in a second. Remember the magic trick we talked about earlier? The disappearing clients?
Oh, right. The poof.
Yes.
Yes.
Your house analogy is actually perfect because it highlights the structural fragility of variable income.
How so?
Well, if you build a heavy second story on a foundation made of sand, the whole thing collapses when the wind blows.
Yeah, but I mean, the desire to celebrate a win is just natural. If I make 10 grand, I feel like a 10 grand a month person.
Of course you do. And that exact feeling is what psychologists call optimism bias.
Optimism bias.
Right, combined with a very hefty dose of lifestyle creep. It is a well-documented cognitive trap.
Okay, explain that trap.
As human beings, we naturally want to anchor our expectations to our best-case scenarios. It releases dopamine.
Oh, so it's a chemical thing.
Totally. When you hit that $10,000 month, your brain immediately wants to categorize that anomaly as your new permanent reality.
Right, you tell yourself, I have leveled up.
Exactly. I am now a successful professional who operates at a $10,000 tier.
Yes, because I worked hard for it. I earned the right to upgrade my apartment or, lease a better car.
I get it. But the mathematics of a heart monitor do not care about your feelings of having leveled up.
That's brutal.
Math is brutal. Let's play out your scenario practically.
Okay.
So you make the $10,000, you feel great. You upgrade your apartment, which adds $1,000 to your monthly rent.
Sounds reasonable for someone making $10K.
And you lease a car, which is $500 a month.
Treat yourself.
Right. So you've now anchored your recurring monthly liabilities to the feeling of a $10,000 month.
Okay.
What happens mathematically when the heart monitor drops back down and next month you only make $800?
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, I can't even cover the rent on the new apartment, let alone the car or food. I drown instantly.
You drown instantly. And you likely go into high interest debt just to survive the month, which entirely wipes out the profit from the $10,000 month anyway.
Wow. Okay, when you put it like that.
This is exactly why the host in the script, Alex, jokes about this. He says, quote, basically don't buy a boat the month you get a big client.
Right. The boat joke.
It sounds like a funny throwaway line, but it is a desperate warning against optimism bias.
Because buying the boat is locking in a liability based on a spike.
Precisely. Anchoring your lifestyle baseline to the absolute worst case scenario, that miserable $800, is not about punishing yourself.
It's about survival.
It is a vital, non-negotiable defensive strategy to protect yourself from your own neurology.
So it's like a self-imposed psychological constraint.
Exactly that.
You have to actively deny your brain the dopamine hit of saying, this is my new normal.
You have to fight your own instincts.
You have to force yourself to view the success as a temporary anomaly just to ensure you don't accidentally bankrupt yourself during the next low cycle.
And you aren't denying the reality of the money, right?
Yeah.
The 10 grand is still in the bank.
True.
What you are doing is aggressively recategorizing its function.
Okay.
By mentally labeling anything over $800 as a bonus, you remove that money from the operational day-to-day budget of your life.
So it's cordoned off.
Yes.
Yes.
You sever the link between a high-income month and an increase in your daily living standards.
I see.
That surplus money transforms from being a justification for a new liability, like the nicer apartment or the boat, into a tool for long-term stability.
Okay, I can see the brutal logic in that. It prevents the immediate collapse.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it raises a massive functional question.
What's that?
Well, if I am strictly living on this tiny $800 baseline, and I'm stacking up all this bonus money from my better months, what exactly am I supposed to do with it?
Yes.
Because this is where the Whyloric script takes a total sledgehammer to the most sacred cow of traditional personal finance.
It really dismantles the most ubiquitous rule in the industry, doesn't it?
It completely destroys it.
Ugh.
Right, we're talking about the golden rule we have all had drilled into our heads since we opened our first bank account.
Save 20% of your income.
Save 20%. It's in every book, every blog, every financial article.
It's everywhere.
But the script points out the glaring flaw for freelancers. How do you save a fixed percentage when the denominator, your income, is constantly shape-shifting?
You can't.
Right. The expert in the script, Sarah, advocates abandoning the percentage model entirely. Just throw it in the trash.
Which, honestly, for a lot of people struggling with variable income, is an incredibly liberating concept.
Not liberated.
Because the guilt associated with failing to hit that 20% target every month can be paralyzing.
Oh, absolutely. It is paralyzing because the math makes no sense in practice.
No sense at all.
Like trying to apply a rigid 20% savings rule to a totally unpredictable freelance income is like trying to use a fixed metal cookie cutter on a piece of dough that magically inflates and shrinks every time you press down on it.
That is a brilliant way to picture it.
Right. You make $10,000 one month, 20% is $2,000. Great. Put it in the bank.
Easy.
But if the next month is that $800 baseline, 20% is $160.
Right.
Not only is saving $160 practically meaningless for building long-term wealth, but you also desperately need that money right now just to keep the electricity turned on.
Exactly. You can't afford to lock it away.
The mathematical rule is entirely inflexible, but your lived reality is totally fluid.
And this is where we have to look at the actual purpose of the 20% rule.
Okay, let's look at it.
Why does standard financial advice push percentages so hard?
Because it scales.
Yes, but more than that. Because percentages are designed for perpetual growth and wealth accumulation over a 40-year corporate career. They assume the baseline is permanently secure.
Yeah.
They assume you have a floor you will never fall below.
But as we've established, a freelancer's baseline is never secure.
Never. Therefore, the strategy must fundamentally shift from offensive wealth accumulation to defensive survival.
Offensive versus defensive. I like that.
And the script provides a very specific mechanism to replace the percentage rule. You don't just save randomly, you build a buffer.
A buffer, not a savings account, not an investment portfolio, a buffer.
Exactly. The terminology matters.
And she gives a very concrete target for this buffer. You aim for a buffer that covers 3 to 6 months of those exact baseline expenses we just defined.
Right. Notice how these concepts are interlocking beautifully now.
Yeah, they really are.
Think back to the optimism bias we discussed a few minutes ago. When people hear save 3 to 6 months of expenses, their brain usually calculates that based on their ideal lifestyle.
Right. They think, I need 10 grand a month, so I need 60 grand saved.
Exactly. But the script is demanding you calculate it based on your survival baseline.
The miserable $800.
Yes. If your absolute bare bones baseline is $800, a 3-month buffer is only $2,400.
Oh, wow. That's actually attainable.
That is a highly tangible, mathematically achievable target, even if your income is incredibly erratic.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here.
Good.
Why stop at 3 to 6 months? I mean, why not just keep saving a percentage forever? What is the actual psychological difference between hitting a buffer target and just trying to save 20% into infinity?
The difference is immense. It changes your entire relationship with money.
Really? How so?
Well, a percentage goal is infinite, right? It has no finish line. You are always running on the treadmill.
You can always save more.
Exactly. But a buffer is finite. It has a clear endpoint. And its primary function is not to make you rich. Its function is to purchase peace of mind.
It's psychological armor.
It is entirely psychological armor.
Yeah.
Let's revisit the magic trick again.
The disappearing client.
Yes. Imagine a client who owes you $3,000 completely ghosts you on the first of the month.
The worst nightmare.
If you are operating without a buffer, what happens to your brain?
Panic. Total unadulterated panic. Because rent is due on the 5th.
Exactly. And panic destroys rational decision-making.
Oh, for sure. You make terrible choices when you're desperate.
When you are in a panic spiral, you make short-term, destructive choices just to generate immediate cash flow.
Like what?
Well, you might put your rent on a high-interest credit card, instantly losing money to interest.
Right.
Or worse, you might accept a terrible, underpaying, abusive new client just because they offer an immediate upfront deposit.
Oh man, I've seen so many people do that.
It happens all the time. And because you are tied up working for that terrible client, you don't have the time or energy to go find a good, high-paying client.
It's a trap.
The lack of a buffer traps you in a cycle of poverty and bad decisions.
Ah, so the buffer actually severs the link between a delayed payment and a panic attack.
Precisely. If you have 3 to 6 months of baseline expenses sitting untouched in a vault, and that client vanishes, your heart rate doesn't even spike.
Because you know you're fine.
You don't take on the abusive client. You don't touch the credit card. You just mentally shrug, dip into the buffer for that month's rent, and use the time to rationally hunt for a better client.
I see it now. The traditional 20% advice is essentially offensive. It's trying to build a bigger future on the assumption that today is safe.
Yes.
But the buffer is strictly defensive. It's about building this massive reinforced wall around your present reality so that the violent drops on the heart monitor don't actually throw you off the tracks.
You buy yourself time.
You buy yourself the time required to not operate out of desperation.
For independent worker, survival is not measured in net worth.
What is it measured in?
It is measured in time. How many months can you survive if the phone simply stops ringing?
That's a powerful way to frame it. Okay, so let's project this forward for the listener.
Okay, let's look at the next phase.
Let's say you, the listener, have actually executed this. You've swallowed your pride, you accepted the heart monitor reality, you calculated your miserable $800 baseline.
You stubbornly refused to buy the boat.
Exactly. And you've managed to scrape together a solid 3-month buffer. Your defensive foundation is finally secure.
Congratulations.
Right. But human nature dictates that once we feel safe, we immediately start looking for ways to aggressively expand. We want more.
It is the logical next step in the hierarchy of needs. Once survival is guaranteed, we look toward growth.
And in the current era, the absolute most ubiquitous, socially demanded answer for growth is the side hustle.
Oh, the side hustle. It's everywhere.
The script points out how explosive this trend is. I mean, you can't open a social media app without someone telling you to monetize your free time.
Everyone is supposed to be an entrepreneur now.
Yeah, Alex, the host in the script, lists off a few examples. He says people are selling handmade candles, they are drop shipping cheap electronics, they are desperately trying to become a creator.
Right.
It almost feels like if you only have one source of income, you are morally failing at modern capitalism.
The societal pressure to monetize every waking hour, to turn every single hobby into a revenue stream, is a massive cultural shift.
It's exhausting.
But the script applies the exact same ruthless mathematical lens to this that it did to freelancing.
And it delivers an absolute brutal reality check.
It really does.
Sarah points out that the vast majority of people fundamentally conflate revenue with actual profit.
A deadly mistake in business.
And she gives a painfully simple mathematical example to illustrate it. She says, if you spend $200 on materials to make a product, let's say those handmade candles, and you sell them for $250, your side hustle is only generating $50.
Are you?
And if you aren't ruthlessly focused on that actual $50 profit margin, you do not have a business. You just have a, quote, very expensive hobby.
That is a truth bomb that dismantles so much of the side hustle culture we see online.
Oh, when I read that, I felt it. The host in the script even says, ouch, somewhere out there, someone just felt that.
Because it's so common.
Because we are entirely conditioned to only look at the top line number. Wait, it's basically like me bragging to you that I finished a full marathon, demanding you congratulate me on my athletic prowess. But I am completely hiding the fact that at mile 6, I paid a cab driver to drive me all the way to mile 26, where I hopped out and crossed the finish line.
Wow.
Sure, I got the medal. Sure, the top line result, the $250 in revenue, looks fantastic on paper. But the net effort, the actual athletic value I extracted, is a complete and total illusion.
The marathon taxi is a brilliant way to frame it.
Thank you.
Because it gets right to the heart of why we lie to ourselves. It's about vanity metrics.
Vanity metrics.
Revenue is the ultimate vanity metric. It's the big, shiny number you put in your social media bio.
Or what you brag about to your friends.
Exactly. It's the number you bring up at that dinner party we talked about earlier, saying, I made $250 selling candles this weekend. Sounds incredibly impressive.
It sounds amazing until you actually look at the credit card bill for the raw wax, the glass jars, the custom labels, and the shipping boxes.
Exactly. We are seduced by revenue numbers because bigger numbers feel better to our dopamine receptors.
It's that optimism bias again.
It is, but the psychology here is an insidious trap. Let's look closer at Sarah's specific example from the text.
Let's see.
You spend $200 in materials to make $250 in revenue. Yes, technically you have $50 in profit. You aren't operating at a strict loss.
Right, you're $50 up.
So why does she call it an expensive hobby instead of a small business?
Because it's not enough money.
Partially, but mostly because she is pointing directly at the invisible overhead that new entrepreneurs almost always fail to calculate.
You mean the time, the sheer hours poured into it.
Time is the biggest one, yes.
Yeah.
But it's also the mental energy, the physical labor of assembly.
Oh, right.
The time spent standing in line at the post office, the emotional labor of dealing with a customer who wants a refund because the candle melted in transit.
God, yeah. The logistics.
Let's do the math on that invisible overhead. Let's say it took you 10 hours of your weekend to source those materials, melt the wax, pour the candles, package them, market them online, and ship them.
10 hours is probably underestimating it, honestly.
Right. And if you spent 10 hours to generate a net profit of $50, you just voluntarily paid yourself $5 an hour.
Oh, wow. When you say it out loud like that, it is utterly devastating.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
$5 an hour to stress yourself out on a Sunday.
It is devastating. And this fundamental misunderstanding of revenue versus profit, ignoring the invisible overhead, is the exact mechanism behind why so many side hustles lead directly to burnout rather than financial freedom.
Because you're working so hard for practically nothing.
People are running on an endless treadmill. They see lots of cash flowing through their hands. The $250 comes in, the $200 goes right back out to suppliers, but they are retaining almost none of it.
They just feel busy.
They are exhausting themselves for the illusion of momentum. If you don't know your true profit margin, including your hourly labor rate, you aren't running a business. You are just doing chores for free.
Okay, so if the side hustle is the active, labor-intensive way people try to aggressively expand their income, the script then shifts to the passive, high-risk way people try to leapfrog the system entirely.
Right, looking for the shortcut.
Because let's face it, once someone is exhausted by the side hustle treadmill, human nature pushes them to look for an easier way. Which brings us to the final frontier explored in the Whyloric script.
Cryptocurrency.
Crypto, the great speculative wildcard of the modern financial era.
It really is. It's completely changed the landscape of risk.
And this is where the script gets genuinely fascinating to me because of how the expert frames it.
Sarah's perspective is very sharp here.
It is. Alex, the host, brings it up by noting that, everyone's cousin has a story about it. It's inescapable.
Everyone knows someone who supposedly made a fortune.
Right. But Sarah states with absolute zero ambiguity that crypto is not a savings plan, it is a bet.
That distinction between a savings plan and a bet is the most crucial definition in modern portfolio management.
She says it could be a highly intelligent bet, or it could be a phenomenally dumb bet. But structurally, it remains a bet. It belongs in a casino, not a bank vault.
Exactly.
And because it's a bet, she introduces this incredible, deeply emotional metric to determine whether or not you personally should invest in it.
The cry test.
She calls it the "if this disappears, will I cry" test.
That's brilliant.
Think about that. If you put $1,000 into crypto and you wake up tomorrow and it has gone to absolute zero, and your reaction would be to cry, that money has absolutely no business being in the crypto market in the first place.
I find this to be a profound moment in the text.
Really? Profound.
Yes. Because in the field of personal finance, which is entirely dominated by sterile spreadsheets, rigid mathematics, and cold, hard numbers, the expert introduces a purely emotional threshold for risk management.
Yeah, she doesn't mention volatility indexes or anything, just tears.
The cry test cuts through all the jargon.
But it makes perfect sense. If we look at everything we've built up so far, does this mean that the defensive buffer we talked about earlier is essentially the impenetrable steel bank vault, and crypto is just the Vegas weekend trip with cash that you already consider gone before you even step foot on the casino floor?
That is precisely the architecture she is suggesting.
Okay.
But executing that requires a very specific, highly disciplined psychological mechanism
What's the mechanism?
called mental accounting.
Mental accounting.
Yeah, you have to consciously categorize your money into completely different mental buckets with different emotional attachments.
So the buffer is the safety bucket.
Right. The reason the cry test is so brilliant is that it forces you to test your emotional detachment before you expose yourself to the volatility.
Right, because let's break down the crying.
Let's do it.
If you are literally crying over lost money, it's not just because you're sad about a number on a screen.
No, it's much deeper than that.
You are crying because you secretly needed that money to survive. You had attached your physical safety, your ability to pay rent or buy food to a highly volatile asset.
Exactly. If you put money into crypto and you secretly view it in your brain as your future safety net, if you are treating a speculative bet as a savings plan, then every single time the market dips, you experience genuine psychological trauma.
Because your safety is literally dropping.
Yes, your amygdala fires off as if a predator is chasing you, because your brain registers that your physical survival is being threatened.
That sounds exhausting.
But by utilizing mental accounting, by writing off the money the exact moment it transfers from your bank to the crypto exchange.
Saying goodbye to it.
Exactly. By accepting that it might evaporate and agreeing beforehand that you won't cry about it, you completely immunize your prefrontal cortex against the volatility.
You've already processed the loss.
Yes.
So if it goes to zero, it's just what you prepared for. But if it goes to the moon, it's a pure, unadulterated, pleasant surprise.
Let's tie this all the way back to the very first concept of our deep dive.
The heart monitor.
The heart monitor of freelance income. If your daily baseline income is already highly volatile, you are already maxing out your brain's cognitive capacity to handle uncertainty.
You're at your limit.
You are. So adding a highly volatile investment strategy on top of a highly volatile income stream without utilizing total emotional detachment, it is psychological suicide.
It's like stacking a roller coaster on top of another roller coaster while blindfolded.
It guarantees a crash. You simply cannot sustain that level of systemic panic.
Which naturally leads us to the ultimate synthesis of this entire conversation.
How to pull it all together.
Exactly. How do you actually survive all of this?
The million-dollar question.
The script wraps up by bringing all these wildly disparate threads, the unpredictable freelance heart monitor, the miserable $800 baseline budgeting, the defensive survival buffers, the exhausting reality of side hustles, and the Vegas-style crypto bets under one unifying grand philosophy.
The overarching thesis of the source material.
Right. So Alex asks Sarah, if someone is juggling all of this chaos, where on earth do they even start?
And her answer is so good.
It is beautifully counterintuitive to everything society screams at us. She says, start boring.
Start boring. It is the absolute antithesis of the modern internet economy, which tells us we need to be constantly hacking our way to explosive overnight success.
It really is. She argues that you have to build your boring buffer first. It's the execution of those painfully unglamorous, tedious money moves that makes the exciting ones, like launching a side hustle, or throwing money into a crypto bet actually safe to attempt.
Boring now, exciting later.
Boring now, exciting later.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the paradox here.
It's very true to life, though.
Right, because everyone is desperately chasing the exciting life. We all want the freedom of the Bali freelancer. We want the massive windfall of the crypto millionaire. We want the entrepreneurial clout of the side hustle creator.
The highlight's real.
But the text argues that the only mathematically and psychologically sound way to achieve that excitement is by first subjecting yourself to extreme, disciplined tedium.
Because boredom is not the opposite of excitement here.
What is it then?
Boredom is the mandatory prerequisite for it.
Yes. Think about a seatbelt in a sports car.
Okay, I like this.
Boring money moves are essentially the seatbelt. Nobody in the history of the world buys a Ferrari because they are absolutely thrilled about the seatbelt.
No, they want the engine.
Right. The seatbelt is restrictive, it's annoying, and it is the least exciting part of the vehicle. But the seatbelt is literally the only mechanism that allows you to drive the car at 150 miles per hour without dying the second you hit a bump.
You need it to survive the thrill.
The boring seatbelt earns you the right to safely experience the excitement of speed.
That analogy perfectly synthesizes the sequential strategy outlined in the script. Everything we've discussed today operates as a staged launchpad.
Walk us through the stages.
Step 1, the unglamorous foundation is staring at your bank statements and figuring out your worst month, accepting that $800 baseline.
There is zero dopamine hit in doing that.
None. Step 2, the next boring phase, is aggressively saving up 3 to 6 months of that meager baseline while denying yourself the boat just to build the buffer.
It's a massive multi-year grind.
It is a grind that requires immense discipline, but look at the systemic transformation that happens once that boring foundation is fully cured.
Everything shifts.
Suddenly, the violent drops of the Freelance heart monitor don't threaten your physical survival. If a client pulls a magic trick and ghosts you, you have a buffer. You don't panic.
You're insulated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, because your survival is secure, you can safely look at launching a side hustle. And because your rent isn't dependent on that side hustle generating cash tomorrow, you have the patience to calculate actual profit margins.
You don't have to chase vanity revenue out of desperation.
You aren't frantically trying to spin straw into gold to pay the electric bill. You actually have the breathing room to build a real sustainable business.
So without the boring foundation, a side hustle is just a desperate scramble for liquidity.
Correct.
And without the boring foundation, putting money into crypto is a terrifying gamble that will trigger a panic attack when the market corrects.
Exactly.
But with the boring foundation, you have achieved the financial and emotional detachment required to take calculated risks.
The boredom literally buys you the psychological security required to finally participate in the excitement.
Boring now, exciting later. It is such a powerful reframe of how we should view our finances.
It's life-changing if you actually apply it.
It really is. So to bring this all together for you, the listener, let's distill the essential, actionable nuggets we've extracted from our deep dive into this Whyloric script.
The key takeaways.
Exactly. First, you have to acknowledge the heart monitor reality of variable income. The expectation is the beach, but the reality is a psychological roller coaster of terrifying spikes and drops.
Number 2, you must ruthlessly redefine your baseline.
Right.
Build the architecture of your budget based on your absolute worst month, not your best. And when you hit a high month, fight the optimism bias. Do not buy the boat.
Third, ditch the traditional 20% savings rule. It mathematically breaks when applied to a fluid income.
Totally breaks.
Instead, focus entirely on building a defensive 3 to 6 month survival buffer to protect yourself against the magic trick of disappearing clients.
Fourth, if you decide to chase growth with a side hustle, calculate your true profit, not just your revenue.
Watch out for the invisible overhead.
Yes, do not let vanity metrics trick you into working for $5 an hour.
Fifth, before you make any speculative bets like crypto, apply the cry test. If losing that money would make you cry, it means you need it for survival.
Keep it in the buffer, not the casino.
And finally, the overarching philosophy, always start boring. You have to build the unglamorous foundation to earn the right to be exciting later.
It is a truly remarkable progression of logic.
It really is.
It takes the listener from a state of total vulnerability, constantly reacting to financial threats, and systematically moves them into a position of secure, calculated risk-taking.
It provides actual control, which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over.
Leave them with something to think about.
At the very end of the source script, Alex asks his listeners if they identify more with Team Save First or Team YOLO into crypto.
A very modern dilemma.
Right. But having deconstructed the psychology behind all this, I want to challenge you with a slightly deeper version of that exact question. Take a hard, honest look at your own financial anxieties right now. Are those anxieties stemming from the fact that you are secretly treating your absolute best, most anomalous month like it's your permanent baseline?
A tough question to answer, honestly.
Very tough. Before you make your next exciting move, whether that's a massive purchase, a speculative investment, or leaving your job to freelance, ask yourself, have you actually earned the right to be bored yet?
The foundation must come first. If you skip the boredom, you guarantee the panic.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope dissecting this blueprint helps you decode some of the overwhelming noise surrounding modern money management.
It's a loud world out there.
It is. Keep questioning the standard advice, stay curious about the psychology behind your decisions, and keep learning. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
And that's it for today's episode of Whyloric. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if something today made you think, made you curious, or even made you smile, let me know in the comments. Until next time, stay curious. This has been Whyloric. See you in the next episode.